Hey, so it's another day. You, me, an amazing panel of ladies are going to be talking about the future because the future is female. And we make sure that Africa is going to be dead center in making sure that we grow. It's all about making sure that we know how to nurture talent as much as you know how to grow your own business. And that's a very important part of all of our businesses. Send me messages if you would like to ask any of our panelists any questions. Speaking of the panelists, I got an amazing range right here. Kicking things off, Candace Theron, Account Director at Carrot. Maritza Vessels, who's the Business Unit Director of Talent and Design at MediaMark. Dashni Vilagazi, Managing Director of the Media Shop Johannesburg. Mali Mutsumi Garrido, the Regional Sales Manager, Johannesburg for DSTV Media Sales. Jane Runard, the Commercial Director of Jacaranda FM. Palisa Mabuse, Managing Director of Nalisa Media. And Hasina Kassim, the Managing Director of YFM. So during this lockdown period, we've had to adjust and make things work in ways that we've never done before. We did crazy things like bake banana bread. Dark times for all of us. But also, we've also had to adapt to working from home and helping talent grow in different ways. So in this period, we all went through our different phases of trying to cope with lockdown. One of mine was to find out a little bit more about colors and their meanings and spirituality. And that's part of the reason why I'm wearing an orange hat, because orange represents aspiration. And that's what we all want to nurture. That's what we all want for our business. Aspiring people, people who come through and want to aspire to do great for your business and for themselves. And that's where we're going to kick off today. So if you have any information that you'd like to share, any information that you'd like to ask about, this is the perfect panel for that. And in Women's Month, the nurturers of life will be able to nurture that curiosity. You're going to kick things off with Candace Theron. Mentors are a massive part of growing as a talent, right? And so for you, what is important about mentoring and growth, that correlation and that growing of talent?
So, hi everyone. So I think it's quite key to understand that it's from two perspectives. So from a country, from a South African perspective, but also from an African perspective, we have a responsibility to our youth and to our talent to invest in them and give them opportunities. If we don't, who else will? And then I also think from an industry perspective, we need to bring new people on board. We need to make sure that we give them enough support, enough opportunities, not only for them so that they can be our future leaders, but also for us as businesses, as agencies, to make sure that we future-proof ourselves going forward. So it's twofold. To invest in them is also to invest in ourselves, and it's exceptionally important.
So Maritza, how do you identify talent that you can nurture in your business?
So I think identifying talent and developing it is a little bit like gardening, right? Getting it and growing it are two very different things. So, and in terms of that, I'm probably going to address the question in two parts. So in terms of identifying talent, I think it's all about the company you keep, right? And that would be company in terms of the business, but also company in terms of the people. So as a business, I think the question you need to ask is, why do great people want to work here? You know, what is it about the ideas that we share and the way we engage with our clients and the way we engage with each other that makes really good people go, oof, I want to work for MediaMark, you know? So as much as you need an inbound marketing strategy for your company, you also need an inbound talent strategy. I think that's really important. But also, I think leaders who want to attract the best talent know that great people almost always have great jobs. So it's very possible that they're not going to come knocking at your door. You may need to go look for them. And if you have a vacancy, it's too late to do that. So I think the test of how serious a company is about attracting talent is about whether they are looking for talent ahead of their need for it, regardless of what your vacancies are like at a specific point in time. But also remembering that where you are right now, in the company that you have right now, you are surrounded by people who already know your business, they already know your clients, they already know the dynamics of how your business works. And this is an area that I think is often overlooked in the search for new blood or new talent. And I think it's sometimes worth a while to look at where in your business there is talent that is dormant or misaligned. And we have a couple of really great examples inside MediaMark of people who were moved to different roles, and they do so well. And that is not because the business is suddenly different, but because the new role is just so much better aligned to their natural talent and their skill set and what they love to do. And, present company included. So you end up getting a really great result because you manage to energize the experience. But then also, there's a whole subset of people who know what it takes to add value to your company. That's your current and your former employees. So at MediaMark, we've started a referral culture by incentivizing our team members who refer a successful candidate when we are looking for specific talent. But in terms of developing great talent, I think a well-designed, outcomes-based skills development programs are so important. I agree with Candace. I think mentoring is crucial, and mentoring programs are very, very useful as long as everybody understands what it means and they are committed to the result and to the outcome of those programs. But more than that, I think as you raise the quality of your talent, you have to raise the quality of your management. The better you become at attracting great people, the more you have to do to create an environment and set up this space in which they can do great work.
So partially it's about being a really great chiropractor within your own business and making sure that everybody's aligned to what they need to do and that they're well suited and they're well fitted. You mentioned as well a little earlier about finding the right people and going out there and finding people. So Dashni, once you found the right person, once you find the right people in your business that you want to help grow to the next level, how do you engage and motivate and even retain those people that you want to grow?
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about motivation. Let's start with motivation. This may come as a total surprise, but motivation is actually overrated. Okay, you need 1% motivation. Okay, very key that you need it to start the process. The other very key thing is discipline and execution. So, we get to a stage where we drive up the level of motivation to an extent where it becomes overwhelming and you leave somebody cold and walk away. And then you haven't necessarily given them the tools and the tasks to execute and drive a discipline. So I'll just give you an example of typical discipline and motivation. If you want to be a world-class bodybuilder, okay, 99% of that is about discipline. You've got to train twice a day, 6 times a week. You've got to eat not chicken, but you've got to eat protein, right? So it's all so regimented in the manner in which you build the functional abilities to support these new employees or even the existing employees, because it's so healthy to bring in new employees. And what they tend to do is they almost alight the change mechanism within an organization because they're coming with new ideas and new thoughts. And you consistently have to build a program where you know that your execution and your discipline is actually up in lights at all times. And it's always about recalibrating the discipline mechanism. And the feedback loop and the feedback process is even more, I think, it's like the planetary movements. If you don't get the feedback process right, and there's so many people that come into the organization that are so extremely creative, right? And you attract these people because they get attracted to a certain organization. It's like Google. If I look at Google get about, I think, 1 million unsolicited CVs without any job specs actually going out, right? It's because they want to work there. So if I create, and I have done this, where I've created an organization where it's a winning organization, it's a winning mindset, and I have to bring you into this ecosystem. It's my responsibility and it's your responsibility for us to actually develop that to that extent.
So discipline being a massive part of all of our areas, whether it's sales, whether it's the product, whether it's people who is pushing out, there's different facets to our businesses as well. It's not just one element of it. So Hasina, tell me a little bit more about when you're dealing with different generations and the learning curve and still having business goals that you need to achieve. We are currently sitting with different steps of the vaccination going out. We're currently sitting with the 34 to 49 cohort, right? And if you watch social media, they say we're the driving force of the economy. We're the ones who are out there making sure our families are taken care of, changing lives. 18 to 34 is going to open up on the 1st of September, but they're very much part of the economy as well. They're very much part of the working class. They're very much part of our businesses as well. So that discipline that Dashni was talking about, applying that, but also the learning curves, the new ideas, the people who've been there for a long time, how do you balance that and focus all that learning to get a great output?
Sure. So with YFM being, as you said, in the 18 to 34 bracket, I mean, we're speaking to the youngest audience commercially. Radio being a very connected medium, and it's a very personal medium. There's this constant need for our talent to be relatable, for audience to be connected. The discipline is a massive thing because you're dealing with young creatives, to Dashni's point. And you win some, you lose some. There are points where, the discipline lacks because of all of the environmental factors that we're facing currently. I think we, at this stage, as business leaders, also underestimate the effects and the impact psychologically on young people of what's currently happening. So we're finding ourselves in a very strange space right now, and needing to adapt and adopt new strategies and new plans. So a static sort of approach to business goals doesn't make sense. So you're constantly moving and shifting and changing as time goes. We also find that with our talent, they need to constantly be on top of what the needs of our audiences are. Audiences are shifting and changing rapidly at a rapid pace. So the learning function in an organization like YFM that has to constantly be on top and with the audience shifts becomes sometimes challenging, but also very exciting. Then you've got so it's a very complicated dynamic because you have young talent in the organization, and this is across the entire organization. So whether you're looking at the back-end departments or you're looking at the front in terms of the product, you've got young individuals and then you've got the older individuals. So it's about balancing the experience with the fresh, new, energetic innovation and ideas. I think Dashni actually mentioned this. When you're looking at young creatives, we all know that you need to be somewhat sensitive around how you critique or how you balance the objectives and what comes out of it and how you manage the, I'm trying to find the right and most diplomatic words here, but how you sort of massage your direction into the creative process without destroying somebody's creativity.
So gently nudging them along, into the right frame of mind to understand the balance of business and personality and creativity.
Absolutely. So that's the balancing act that we currently face right now. There's a lot of, and with the changes, and again, to my point around, the psychological impact of what we're dealing with. We need to be very cognizant of the fact that we're not going to get 100% out of a lot of people at this stage. But what you can do is try and align and make sure that you get the best that they can possibly give you. And make sure that all of the little bits and pieces together creates this beautiful puzzle that actually works. So I think in leadership at the moment, it's quite a challenging time.
So Jane, I think you relate a lot to what Hasina has to say. You also work in a radio environment. Creativity is a big part of this, but also, as Hasina mentioned, not everybody, in fact, many of us are not operating on 100%, but we still need to meet targets. We still need to get things done. We still need to make sure that at the end of the day, deliverables are met. So how do we foster that creativity that gets us to what we need to get to as a product, as a business?
So, Jens, I think for me, one of the biggest benefits, if we could call that that has come from the pandemic is the fact that we've had to learn to do different things differently. We've had to break molds. We haven't been able to do things that we've been able to do in the past because we've shifted our dynamics so dramatically over this time, and it was forced on us. It wasn't a choice, right? So as a result of that, I believe that there is a lot of opportunity for creativity. There's a lot of opportunity to open up avenues. And I think what some of the really important elements that I've certainly seen, what we fostered within Jacaranda FM, is that we've developed an environment whereby we're always encouraging creativity. But by doing that, we've also allowed our creatives to have a voice. But what we've done, which I think has shown some levels of success massively, is that we've brought in other divisions. So we've made it a cross-divisional discussion. So we haven't just left the creative thinking to those that would traditionally be creative thinking people. We haven't boxed it, because I think maybe we've done that a little bit in the past. We've totally opened it up and said, let's have different projects. And if you're feeling underutilized as a staff member, you know, we used to having massive events and mass participation events. And if you've got an eventing sector within your business, they may be feeling a little bit underutilized. Bring them into other factors. We've had that. We've certainly had the eventing team that's come into my trade activations and assisted massively there, because we're now exposing some of our talent to other environments, to other skill sets, which I think is really important, because with that exposure comes the growth and development that we are often looking for. But in another way, it also helps to encourage productivity, because I think one of the biggest fears, and it's a theme that's coming through a little bit, was productivity. And when you're dealing with something that is the unknown, I think we can reflect now because we're a little further down the line. But originally when this happened and we all went into this huge lockdown, the levels of fear become paralyzing. For, you know, each person deals with these dynamics differently. And it can become paralyzing. So it's your leadership's responsibility to find projects, to motivate, to drive the creativity. Don't allow for you know, just remove the shackles of fear of failure. Let's have a look at what we can do. Let's have a look at what the opportunities are that have been presented here. You know, we did Mzansi Quest, which was a virtual reality world that we developed, and there was no fear. Because we had to change, we had to do things differently, and we totally had to be creative.
Speaking of change and being creative and finding new ways, Mali, does technology play a part in growing and fostering talent? Because we have to find new ways to engage. We're literally sitting in a panel now, hundreds of kilometers away from each other, but we're all connected in one space. How important is technology and moving that growth pin forward?
So, Kenzie, my answer is a definitive yes in terms of technology assisting with growth. I'll just take what you said a little bit earlier on. During this time that has been so unfortunate, the one thing that we could rely on were the tools we had at hand to be able to push our businesses forward. And it's interesting because there's a universal theme. You know, we've all had to adapt. We're working in a completely different way than we ever thought was possible. A lot of our businesses have been about people being, you know, inside of the business to show that they're actually working and doing what they need to be doing. So if you just look at and you highlight the times that we find ourselves in, the tools we've had to use during COVID have definitely given myself and my team more access to each other. But not only that, they've also given myself and the team access to our Exco team. And there's such a world of knowledge and, you know, insight from a business perspective that sits within that. So as we interact more with them using the technology, you know, that has allowed us to sit together, we've just grown so much. We've also sat in more meetings with our CEO as well as CEOs and MDs of other companies and just clients in general. And each one of those interactions have provided invaluable lessons, you know, and opportunities to shift the way we do things and to grow as business people. Secondly, businesses across the world are increasingly leveraging new technologies to either digitally transform or to future-proof themselves. This provides new revenue streams for the organization. And it also requires that teams, you know, learn new products or platforms and to be proficient in their speak. So this is the best on-the-job training that an employee can actually ask for. Everyone is being taken along as the business adapts to that particular technology. There's plenty of learning. There are skills, new skills being developed, or even dormant ones, being brought to the fore. New roles are being created. And so what you find is that people are also able to take on newer responsibilities. And with these great opportunities, there's obviously growth and development. If I just look at our business, in the last 4 years, everyone in our team has gone from being an above-the-line linear expert to having developed real sound proficiencies in digital. And I see this trend increasing as we roll out OTT DAI in the next few months to come. It's opportunities again to learn, and that is technology right at your doorstep, being driven by the demands we see in the world, being driven by our audiences. And so it gives us the opportunity to stretch ourselves. So as we ride through the digital wave of disruption and conventional business rules become less reliable, it is absolutely imperative for organizations to focus on their most vital assets, their talent. And when their talent absolutely get it and they embrace these things, it just creates infinite opportunities.
On that note, Palisa, how do we help our employees blossom as employers? How do we help them sharpen those skills, get to the next level, move them in that right direction?
Thank you. I think just as much as everybody has said here, there's an underlying message of education. There's an underlying message of continuously training your staff, continuously upskilling your staff, giving them the resources that they need to understand the ever-changing industry that we're in. Just as Mali has mentioned, that the technology that we are facing, we need to give our staff the opportunities to go test out these technologies, find out more, do more research-based work that is going to help them develop their skills further. So I think education, it does not necessarily mean having to go get a new degree, but finding short courses that will enhance you in your different departments, finding out what other departments doing in order to enhance your department. So in the long and short term of it, for me, I think education, skills development is very key across board. Whether the person is upcoming, whether us as managers, as Marita said, if you're going to have people that you're mentoring, you yourself need to be a better manager. So us ourselves need to continue educating ourselves in order to pass on the baton, and bridge the gap between the higher level and middle level. So with that said, I think education and training is something that we need to definitely invest in. Yeah.
So Maritza a little earlier mentioned going out there and finding the right people, even having a program that incentivizes people to bring them into the business, because you want the best, right? Everybody wants to be the best. That's what the Olympics is all about. You send your best to represent you, to do their best, and hopefully you come back with a few medals. But that also means that there's a limited pool of people who everybody's trying to poach. A question's just come in for everybody on the panel. I'm going to call out your name, and you can answer if you'd like to answer as well. Put up your hand. But this is addressed to everybody. Do you have a winning recipe for retaining top talent that you've invested very heavily in terms of time and training, like Alisa was saying, finding courses, finding ways to instill new skills in them, who appear on every competitor's poach list? How do you make sure that you keep them within your business? We can start with Dashna. Do you have a recipe of retaining that talent? You mentioned discipline earlier, and I guess the relationship with your people is imperative to that as well, I guess.
Yes. So what I've listened to pretty much from everyone is that ever since we've been working in this remote and very interesting environment, is that people have become more and more specialists, more and more generalists as opposed to specialists. And we're becoming generalists. You have become, almost an entrepreneur that's running your own business in your own setup. And as a result, it's about how do you as an organization engineer a knowledge-driven culture in your organization. And it's creating many, many, many opportunities for people to grow. And it's extremely uncomfortable, but that is the right place to channel all that uncomfortable energy, because as humans we always want to survive, and the minute you drive someone into an uncomfortable spot where they have to show up, humanity rises to the challenge, and you will see the best fruits flourish out of those environments. And you've got to trust that in your people, okay? If you as a leader have done your bit and you believe in them and you believe in what you've done, you've got to let the show ride thereafter.
Candice, do you have that special formula? You've got the best of the best, you've invested in them. How do you keep them from being poached?
So I think it's two things, and it's very important to think about the environment that you're putting your talent in. This talent, they're your rising stars, right? They are your high performers. As much knowledge and support that you give them, you need to make sure that they are in an environment that you fostered that allows them to flourish, allows them to be comfortable, allows them to be ultimately what they are, human. And if we understand that as businesses, as agencies, as leaders, that will equip anyone that you've invested in to invest back in you, to say, you know what, I want to be here because it's authentic. So as many retention strategies that we put in place, if you as a person do not feel comfortable with yourself in your environment, with your team, with your manager, with your mentor, there's nothing more that we can do to say, you definitely need to stay. Because although the grass may be greener based on, let's say, compensation, in that company culture is key to who you are and who you want to be and where you see yourself in your 5-year plan at your first year, your third year, your fifth year. You're going to stay. So that's my opinion of it.
Is there a generational issue this as well that comes into play? My parents love the idea of working for the same company for 25 years, getting that watch, that gold watch, getting the retirement, having the party. People 5 years ago frowned upon job hopping. This generation is about doing multiple things. They are entrepreneurs, they are vloggers, they are this, that, and the other. Plus, they'd like to be part of the ecosystem in terms of a full-time job, maybe for 2 years, for 1 year, then jumping to the next opportunity. Alisa, is this a factor that you've seen as well? And does that also play a part in how you put together your retention strategy?
It's definitely something that I have seen, but I wouldn't limit my staff, because the more that they do, the more that they bring back. The more that they're out there, the more insights we have on how to market ourselves, how to bring out our products, and how to entice our audience as well. So I think it's very important that people don't get stuck as well into one particular thing, but expand themselves to different things. Like you're saying, people want to be vloggers. That as a media owner, having those different aspects in our as an offering gives us a sustainable business and something worthwhile. Out of home is not really outplayed, but now there's different formats. There's social media. So if I've got somebody who's vlogging, and at the same time we can marry that to a campaign that's out of home, or marry that to an activation, so I think it's something that I think it's beautiful, because nothing wrong with multiple revenue streams, right?
Right. But I think also that culture shift in terms of how do we realign and reimagine corporate culture, then it changes the entire narrative. We have young people who are doing multiple things. It's very different from how it was 10 years ago and how they operate and come into the working space. So how do you incorporate? That's a question for the entire panel, saying from Howard, thank you for the question, Howard. How do you instill corporate culture and values while working remotely? And also I'll add to that, with people wanting multiple streams, wanting to do other things. So Jane, working remotely has been quite a challenge at a radio station where everybody is traditionally in the same space. Now everybody's home and you need to make sure that you are catering for 1 million people. How do you do that? How do you instill that corporate culture?
So, Kings, it's really interesting because it is something that we're all facing, right? And I think it's constant communication. It's making sure that as a leadership team, you're constantly reaching out, not just within your own realm. I don't just reach out within the commercial space. You have to reach across different environments. You have to understand that because it is difficult. We had an MD who started in the middle when the pandemic started, and she had to manage a radio station literally from her dining room table. So you've got to consistently stay within the leadership team has to foster that culture. You have to get the communication going and make sure that people remain feeling like they're being communicated with, because it is difficult to foster the culture from a distance. And when you can get together and have the opportunities to do so with the safety protocols put in place, do it, because that energy that gets driven from actually everyone being apart and then having a few opportunities to get together in smaller groups really drives that culture, really drives that sense of being, that sense of, belonging that we're all kind of looking for at this stage. It is difficult, but it's just consistent. And when you don't have those opportunities, please reach out. We've got a buddy system at the moment. I think it's an amazing initiative. Reach out to your colleagues, understand where they're at. And not just from a business perspective. We need to be kinder. We need to be human. We need to understand people are going through their stuff. So reach out. If you can sense somebody's feeling a little bit under the weather or maybe not themselves, reach out, make sure that they're okay. It's hardcore. It's brutal out there.
Hasina, you have to deal in an environment where you've got a lot of young people, a lot of them, this is their first job, a lot of energy, a lot of drive. Same thing. How do you drive that corporate culture, but also have that discipline that Dashni mentioned earlier, that's vital to you being successful as a business in a remote environment? Those things are difficult to balance. How are you doing that?
So we've kind of done things a little bit differently at the e-media group. And we've had people coming in from the 4th of May last year. So I've been a soldier and I've been in the office every day from the 4th of May 2020. It's been largely difficult because at points we're alone as a leadership or management team. But what we've done is we've ensured that there are periods where rotational basis work continues to happen. We've done this specifically because of the psychological impact. We've got a lot of young people that live on their own, that now coming from Groove a year and a half ago to literally being alone in their four walls. The impact has been drastic. I mean, last year alone, we had so many situations and so many cases of people with attempted suicides, whether within our audiences or friends that we know. And recognizing this was an important part of the way in which we continue to work. So yes, there's discomfort at certain points where why would we come into the office? But I think just last week we had a conversation outside in the smoking area, and the guys were talking about, having been able to come into a space at different points made it much easier to deal with. Having that human connection, that human contact. Just last week, I mean, it might be too soon, but the unrest just happened, and a couple of us were chuckling around certain things that we saw, or the memes that were going around with the guy carrying a coffin out of looting. And we had a good chuckle about it. But the reality was that we're not laughing at the situation. It's that human connection that was so important. It was the ability to laugh in the face of adversity that actually drove people to sort of look forward to the next day. Because you're finding that with young people, they literally are looking at one moment to the next as opposed to one day to the next. Because the entire world have just sort of shattered in front of them. So it's been a balancing act, but at the same time, making sure that we're keeping to safety protocols while still maintaining the motivation, the energy, and keeping that going so that we constantly also feeding the creative monster that we need, and so that we can deliver the best possible content that's available.
It's been echoed a few times by a few of the ladies on the panel, but the human connection element of the corporate business has become huge, particularly in the last year and a half, because we're so far apart. And as much as technology assists us in getting in touch with each other and staying in touch with each other, the human element of being in touch and just saying, hey, are you okay, might change the way someone picks up the phone and does business on that particular day. And that support that you have around it. And it's a huge element with regard to the business, the buddy system that Jane spoke about, Hasina talking about, making sure that the well-being is looked after. It's not just about the bottom line, even though that's an important element of this as well. Today, so far, has been amazing. And it's about to get a whole lot better. If you want to find out more about what's going on, make sure that you go and tell all your friends right now they can still register for the last bit of this. Quicklink.co.za at hashtag /awards most. Also, thank you to all our partners, Jacaranda FM, Prime Media Broadcasting, Carrot, DSTV Media Sales, Mercurial Media, MediaMark, The Media Shop, Viacom CBS Africa, Black Media Outdoor, YFM, Nalesa Media, Talk Media, Melfi, Gin, and Thirst. Thank you for making this panel possible today. Question coming in from Stacey. Has the panel seen a larger pool of talent move abroad, go overseas, and how can we compete with that from a salary perspective, from a benefits perspective? Is that even possible, Maritza?
I think that there's been movement across different industries, right? So it's not just in South Africa. And I think the question also goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about retention. And when you're talking about education, regardless of generation, I think it's so important to understand that as a business, you're investing in people for the sake of the people first. And when people are in an environment where they can do their best work, then the business will see the benefits of that. So I think that it's important to understand that whatever you put together, wherever people go, I was looking at the panel and thinking that there are so many people in the industry who are doing such amazing things, who I remember working at MediaMark with, right? 2 of them are on this panel actually. So we are very, as much as it hurts to lose people, whether you lose them to another company in South Africa or whether you lose them to going abroad, I think that we're very proud of the MediaMark alumni and the amazing things that people continue to do. And I think you have to be grateful for the part that you play in people's journey and that you get to be a part of that. And then just let people grow and let them do what is the best for them to do, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else. It's understanding that if you really make a difference in people's lives, that stays wherever they go. And I think that that's the real benefit of nurturing talent and of growing people across generations, across businesses, because they might even go on to other industries. And that I think is really, really helpful.
Mali, you're in the business of technology, and I'm sure you've seen in this last year and a half how massively we've all been leaning towards that. There are terms and words and things that we've never heard before that are now part of our ecosystem because we have to. Technology has moved that quickly in this period. Speaking of technology in the 9 to 5, now that we're used to working from home, is there a 9 to 5 day in the office post-COVID? Is that something that we can expect the way it was pre-COVID? Or is technology going to be that driving force? What are your thoughts, Madly?
I always talk about how things honestly have shifted within our business. We are definitely not a 9 to 5 business. And I think our clients definitely don't treat us that way. You can speak to anybody on my team and they are answering, not that it's necessarily healthy, but it's the way of the world and where we are. Please disclaimer to my entire team. And we try and manage it as best as we can, Kenzie, but I think honestly, times have shifted. There's a sense of always being on. There's, briefs will come in and people, if they can't get a hold of you on the telephone and you're not answering their emails, will then WhatsApp you and they demand answers right here, right now. So it's been incredibly difficult in this period in time, but at the same time, it's been incredibly rewarding because you are seeing things happening in real time, better than we ever had. There aren't any excuses anymore of, oh no, I'm driving, whatever it is. We are able to attend to business as it come up. We're able to quickly call meetings and sit together, and we are able to solve problems in real time. And what we found as a business is that our clients have never appreciated us more. So it definitely has its pros and its cons. And I think life as we know it has changed forever. And as much pressure as there is, it's interesting because my team knows it. I often put up my hand and say, guys, go back to the office. Me, I'm staying exactly where I'm at because I've been able to be so much more productive. At the same time, it's important to create the balances. We are people at the end of the day. And I think, Candace said it and Jana said it. It is important to make sure that people feel supported. People feel that they are able to still live their lives. They are able to be interested in other things. Work, of course, does continue, but I think as leaders, it's important to build those parameters for people to say it is okay to not be okay at this point in time. It is okay to say no to your client. I found a trend also where clients now will just brief you at short notice, then you must have an answer instantaneously. And I keep on saying to my team, guys, where you can, you are the CEO of your business. Buy yourself the necessary time, manage your client, and create parameters in a way that is healthy for you to be able to function. Because you know what? In previous times, you were able to log off and to say, I'm actually done. I'm calling it a day. But in the times that we find ourselves in, it's Groundhog Day. It's never ending. It's this loop that will drive you insane. So it is so important for people to make sure that they're still exercising, they're still eating healthily, they're still taking walks, they're still taking their lunch times. In any given week, the way that we work sometimes, your head doesn't come up for air. And so if you want to take an extended lunch break, take an extended lunch break, because at the end of the day, regardless of what technology brings to us, we are human beings first. We are men and women of flesh and blood. We have got people we love who need us. This is not the be all and the end all. And what I found is that when you allow people to be human first, they will give you everything that they have. When a person takes an extended lunch break, they will work 3 hours extra to make that up. So I think it is so important to understand the value of technology, the connectivity that it gives us, but also for us to be able to say, I'm the human being who controls this. I switch off that light. And I then create boundaries. I create parameters that ensure that I remain a healthy and a happy person and I'm able to continue.
Candace, is 9 to 5 just a Dolly Parton song now? Is it something that's still in place? 9 to 5, your thoughts on that?
Look, like what has just been said, it's your boundary. You've got to find what works for you. So you have morning people, you have nighttime people. And as an agency, or what I've been afforded at Cara, is that as long as you get what you need done and you service your clients and you put out an exceptional product, that 9 to 5 is what you make it. I think the policing system of what we had a few years ago, you need to be in an office 8 and your hours in at 5, that doesn't exist anymore. And obviously that's been accelerated by the environment and the COVID situation we find ourselves in. So allow people to be responsible and accountable for their time. Allow them to manage what works for them, to say, you know what, I will get my work done. It will be an exceptional product. But maybe I work 10 to 8. Maybe I work from 6 and I clock off at 3. Allow that flexibility, allow that human element for people to function, because over and above that 9 to 5 of work, we have families. You need to feed your kids. You need to walk your dog. You need to be more than just, you know what, I'm a strategist, I'm a client service director. You want to be everything and more, and drink enough water, and somewhat have some sort of social life in whatever capacity you can. So 9 to 5 is what you make it, whether it's 10 to 4 or 10 to 8, sorry. So, yeah.
So Dashni, how do we foster that culture of flexibility and prioritizing happiness for an employee, but also at the same time, making sure that we still get things done? Or is one the step to the other? If we give them that freedom, is that going to give us a little bit more as a business?
So we've stepped into this entire work-life friction, if anything, right? And if you had to ask people, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to work remotely from home, or do you want to all come back to the office? Okay. To formalize that, Harvard has just done a study where they've asked, what would you like to do? And I think they had a panel of about 3,000 people. And what do you think was the answer? Work from home. Okay. So what we're finding is that with people working from home, it's like they've almost empowered themselves. They don't need a hierarchy-led organization. If you look at our organization that I work for, the Media Shop, it's about an ideas-run organization. It's not a hierarchy-run organization, right? And when you foster this culture of agility and flexibility and adaptability, what did Darwin say? He said that the weakest will die and the toughest will evolve into bigger, better. So it's allowing someone to run their own flexibility as they will. And when you do that, we have seen phenomenal change in how people have managed themselves and have driven our client serviceability and making customers and clients feel phenomenal and delivering on their work. If you look at e-commerce in the world, especially in South Africa, right, in the last year, because we weren't allowed to get out there and buy our products and allow retailers to do what they need to do for us, look at how e-commerce have shot through the roof, right? So everything else is packed around us in terms of our world and has supported us to help us just do the absolute best that we can. And if, as an organization, you can't control that. It's people and it's the trends and it's the whole of humanity that has made that change. And you'll be left behind as an organization if you don't get on that bandwagon and drive that agility and flexibility.
So FOMO is a big part of being a young person. Balisa, you know this, right? We literally have acronyms about missing out. FOMO, the fear of missing out. So got a question for you from Stacey. You mentioned earlier that education is key. The younger generation is definitely a big part of e-commerce, of the economy, coming into the work environment as well. So that's big in terms of making sure that they have an education and the necessary skills. So the question from Stacey is, have you seen any skills almost evaporate with the newer generation coming in, or any talents that are being focused now on more than ever? So are we focusing more on things more than ever that we didn't before? Or is there stuff like, wait, what's happening with this new generation?
Definitely there is a huge shift to the digital world. Everybody's moving to the e-commerce world. With the pandemic being so uncertain, people are trying to find ways to survive. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of people moving away from artisan skills. There was a huge drive for artisan skills at some point, then the pandemic hit. Then there was a huge shift to this e-commerce digital world. So there is, I think we are still trying to balance it because we are trying to somewhat go back to normal life, where we'll still need those raw skills, those raw talents, people who know how to do calculus, from a book or something, people who still know how to write, those kind of things are still very much needed. So there is a shift, definitely, because of the uncertainty in the world. But at the same time, I think we are still trying to balance ourselves, because there are people who aren't well aware, unfortunately, who are in remote areas, who don't have the opportunities or the access to knowing about e-commerce and all these other things. So I think we are still trying to find a balance. And with the uncertainty, there will still be those artisan skills that will still exist without a doubt. And there'll still be a huge rise in the e-commerce. I have younger sisters and younger brothers who are saying, oh, e-commerce this, oh, e-commerce that. And for a moment, I was like, what's e-commerce? And then it clicked. I was like, oh, we've been doing this, but it's now gotten so much more attention because of the pandemic. So there is definitely a shift in the skills that we are seeing, people moving towards more technology-based and digital-based skills.
And understanding that is critical for any business. Gen Z doesn't know how to write in cursive, but they'll find that tweet that you wrote in 2013 crying about your ex. They'll find it. To the entire panel, in terms of KPIs, a question from Ian. I'm going to kick off with you, Hasina, because you've been in an environment where you've come in every single day for quite a bit, you've tried to keep a normal work environment somewhat in a very strange time. We'll start off with you, and anybody else can answer this question as well, is do scorecards and KPIs have a place in growing and tracking talent in a time like this? So do we measure people the same way?
Absolutely not. Again, I think it goes to the initial comment that I made around having a static strategy doesn't really work. So what works today might not necessarily be what works tomorrow. What you start off on a project having an objective, that objective could evolve into something completely different later on. I'll give a perfect example of, we recently launched a podcast series. The objective of the podcast series was to get into the space and to really get a lot of learnings around how we develop that aspect of the organization or of the strategy itself. And as time went on, it turned into a completely different exercise. And we managed to fulfill an objective that wasn't actually there. So if you had to look at a very stringent KPI format of that particular project, we might not have hit the mark that we initially anticipated, but we definitely surpassed it and met a completely different objective. So I would definitely say you need to be, again, it talks to that agility, the flexibility, the nimble nature of what we have to be at this stage. I think being in content creation and content dissemination and being in an environment where we are so very online visible. I mean, we come from an audio medium. And all of a sudden, we are finding ourselves squarely in a visual space. So we've evolved from a radio or a traditional radio perspective. And what does that mean? So the objectives that we would have set in the beginning of April 2020 in our financial year, you've achieved something completely different. And at the end of the fiscal, you looked and you saw, okay, so we've actually evolved. We've been so much better than we actually expected. But as traditional media, where are we right now? So it's that constant evolution that we need to be aware of and accept. So yes, your KPIs are going to change.
And speaking of evolution, Jane, you've done an amazing job. I think you mentioned earlier that you've had to do things differently as trade marketing and find innovative ways of trying to do things, bringing people from other parts of departments that used to do activations to doing, and you've done a number of different ones to keep connected. Some of them, I know I've seen one or two of them. You did a paint one recently. There was one with a French restaurant and clients being treated and being taken away to a different place when they can't go anywhere in the world. Those things are invaluable. Talk about the innovation quickly around coping in this period.
So, Kens, yeah. So again, pandemic arrived. We're not in a space where we can get together with our clients and treat them and also thank them for their consistent support through a very, very difficult period. So we sat down and had a brainstorm with the trade marketing team at Jacaranda FM and at MediaMark, our partners. And we came about with some really innovative virtual ways to keep engaging our clients. So the first one we actually did, we had a presenter, Ilana Africa Bread and Come, came in with me, and we did a beautiful baking activation. And what I actually did was I sent out an invite for all of those who wanted to participate. We sent out packs. So you literally received everything that you needed for the day. You didn't need to go out and do anything. The first one was done in when we were in like proper hard lockdown. And the results and the attendance was amazing because it was actually an activation. Jacaranda FM is very well known for being a family radio station. So we hooked the kids, as you do, sent really cool collateral for the kids, little aprons and hats and stuff. And if you've got the kids, the parents have to come, right? So the kids got to open up these beautiful goodie bags. And then obviously on Saturday morning, we saw the WhatsApp messages coming through about how excited everyone was to come and join us. And from there, it's kind of evolved, and we've just seen an incremental increase in interest to come and join us, just because it's a way of entertaining your kids in a time that's incredibly difficult. I think parents have had to become teachers. So, I'm not a parent, but I don't even want to understand or believe how stretched everyone is. So it's really just an opportunity to come and have some fun. And then the restaurant's opportunity was, again, it was a client engagement. We wanted to engage with the client to say thank you, but also bring them a little closer to us. So we actually went in, Ken's was with me on the day, and we filmed all of this food being basically made. But what had happened was everyone had that meal delivered to their door. So we actually had the opportunity, once the filming had taken place, for us to actually sit down and have a virtual meal together, which was also really much appreciated at that time, because it's difficult. And having a meal together is the one thing that I think really drives collaboration, kindness, caring, relationships, partnership, that kind of thing. When you share a bit of food over a table and some good conversation, no one can underestimate that.
We're going to wrap things up in a moment, but Dashni, you have a comment.
I want to just chat about the KPI comment that came earlier and the question earlier. So, it's about, I don't think it's any longer about the soft skills. It's really about the hard skills and about humanity skills, right? And KPIs are extremely important, because what is happening right now is that people are almost feeling like they're in a structureless environment. They need a home, and they need, at night you've got to turn the lights off and you've got to lock the doors, right? The basics. So KPIs is just a really, it's more like a support mechanism and a support tool to hold people together and drive, because you still got an organization that you've got to lift out and lift up and move in a certain direction. And all of these little functional tools like KPIs now becomes even more enriched and even more important, the context and the content that goes into your KPIs and those conversations that you're having with people. And it's nowhere near what it used to be in the office in 2019. It's your engagement, it's your factors of, like I mentioned earlier, each person is almost running their own business in a way. You're having a conversation with a business partner now. So KPIs is definitely something that, cannot go away.
It's been an amazing morning. It's time for us to wrap things up. I wish I could talk to you ladies for another hour. Whether it's being kind and connecting, like Jane mentioned, or Palisa saying you need to have education and evolve with your guys, helping your guys go out there and embrace their extra skills, embrace what they're bringing to the table, embracing the different things that they do. Or Dashni saying discipline is an important part of this. Yes, motivation is important, but discipline and making sure we connect. Maritza says, go out, find the right people, and they will align with your business. Hasina says, I will be here every day, and I will change strategy and do things a little bit differently, but make sure that the well-being of my team is taken care of while we chase those goals. Candace doesn't think a 9-to-5 is a thing. Girl, I'm with you. Mali, in isiZulu, Mali means money, imali. And I hope that everybody gets a little bit more of that with technology, which is a big driver in Mali's business. So no matter what you're using, whether it's a combination of traditional and new technology, this hybrid, this new working environment, this new way of doing things in the world, these conversations that we have will all help us adapt a little bit better as we try and grow talent and find the right mix for our businesses to grow talent within, to help grow our businesses, and to make sure that we all thrive in these very, very strange times. Thank you for joining us this morning. You can still check out everything that's been happening this morning. It will be available online. Thank you to our partners who've made this morning possible for us. So share, send the hashtag, continue the conversations on social media. How do we grow talent? Tag the ladies who are part of this. Thank you to Jacaranda FM, Prime Media, Carrot, DSTV Media Sales, Mercurial Media, MediaMark, The Media Shop, Viacom CBS Africa, Black Media Outdoor, YFM, Nalisa Media, Talk Media, Melfi, Gin, and Thirst. And thank you to you for joining today. Thank you, ladies. Jane, Palisa, Hasina, Maritza, Dashni, Candace, and Mali. You were all phenomenal. Have a great day.